Hey guys, Andy and Spoken Label back in the house on a Sunday afternoon. Oh, yeah, Sunday afternoon. I'm getting mixed up here because the way my brain's going today. We're a bit late setting off today, and I planned, but because we've had a Mandarin before, chatting to my guest today, and there's all should be revealed to that one in due course. Now we're over to Canada today, and I've not actually asked my guests which part of Canada are you in, David. First of all, sorry.
In the east, I'm in New Brunswick, so
Brunswick, yeah.
just above Maine.
Very nice,
Yeah.
very nice. Yeah, I've got family over in Toronto, to be honest, yeah, from my dad's side,
Okay.
but I've never been, and I will go someday. Now we've got
Yeah.
a guest to me today. Now I met this gentleman. Was it last year we got talking, David? My reckoning
Yes. Yes.
it was last year, wasn't it?
Uh,
I know somebody. I know my friend Effie, who I've been mentoring. Which you didn't know about actually, a young Irish poet, and she told me she was going on to your weekly show. She'll come on to shortly, and she got me on to come on and watch. And I headlined for you last year, and I'm back on again in a
nice.
couple of months, but that's just another day. And we have the fantastic David Leo Sirois with us today. Now, David, we've got plenty to go through today, mate. So, as I expected, little else of you when you sent your bio over to me. So take us back in time then, first of all, because I know you told me already your family's you've got American and Canadian background in your family, but there's also a French aspect as well as your life, isn't there?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
where were you born originally then?
I was born in Canada, in a francophone part of it, in New Brunswick, in the town where I live now. But I grew up directly across the bridge in northern Maine. So it's nice having that kind of uh, dual citizenship, dual life, being a double agent. And my family originally is from Saint-Germain-en-Laye. It's a city a little west of Paris. And I've been there. It's lovely. There's a castle and all kinds of great architecture and feeling and all of that. But I grew up in northern Maine, and my family. I grew up with my mother, which is actually great because um, although I love my father and I'm getting to know him better finally now, uh, my mother is an artist of many kinds. I mean, she's written stuff and won awards. She is a brilliant pastel and colored pencil and other kind of drawing expert, and uh, being brought up with her, she would always say, like, she would give us all these art supplies, for example, and say, "Okay, go make a mess." And
Oh,
so we
ca-
we had all the freedom
brilliant.
that we needed, and so
Fantastic.
growing up with that kind of encouragement and freedom, and she always encouraged my writing, so that was really helpful. And I even had a dream once where I heard, "You didn't have a father in your hands. You needed not to have one."
That's a
So,
good saying, isn't it? Yeah. I like
so
that.
brought up in a house of women. And when I was 10 years old, I had a teacher who introduced the class to Edgar Allan Poe and gave us poetry writing exercises. And once she gave us the assignment to write one poem, and I wrote eight. So I was very
Wow.
enthusiastic about poetry from the very start, and got you know, what
That's
is
so
the word? Encouragement from her as well. So a good boost at the beginning there.
Oh yeah, completely. That's some going. That is. It's almost like you said it clicked to you as a child, didn't it? Then really. So no, I get you
Absolutely.
completely. Yeah, no, that's fantastic, mate. Brilliant stuff.
It's all I've
Now,
ever really wanted to be as a poet. So,
no, yeah, fair play, mate. Same for me. I always want to just be a poet. In my case, it snowballed into lots of other things, but that's life sometimes. Just been a creative wanderer. So, yeah, now, as before, there's a lot we want to touch on here. So, I do want to ask you about your life in Paris, but we'll come on to that shortly. Now, there's a few bits and pieces, obviously, people research it will find out. I want people you tell people about. First of all, you had a winning entry, didn't you, in the I Hear the Bank of America singing contest for Wergle Flop humor poetry. Oh, sorry, that's two different things. That. So I just realised that. Tell us first of all about your winning entry in the I Hear the Bank of America singing contest.
oh, in the Wordle Flomp
Yeah.
humor poetry contest,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, my poem "I Hear the Bank of America Singing" is in the voice of Walt Whitman, and it
Ooh.
alludes to and borrows from at least eight of his poems that I had knocking around in the back of my head. And one day I was waiting to get pulled into a labor ready kind of per diem job, like, go out, and I ended up smashing up a driveway with a sledgehammer and a pickaxe with a bunch of guys. But while I
Wow.
was waiting, I wrote that poem, and it's become a big thing. It became really well known in Paris and published over there. And so when I entered it into this humor poetry contest and realized that they accepted things that had already been published, I was really grateful. So I sent it in, and they invented third prize for me. It used to just be first and second, and then the honorable mentions. But they said I was a cut above all of the honorable mentions. So
Oh,
they invented
fantastic.
third place and gave me a special, prize amount,
Oh,
and it was great. Yeah, so
oh,
I'm very proud of that.
oh yeah, it's deservedly as well with that. Now, also as well, obviously, cover one of a couple of things we'll touch on is about your involvement in the Poetry Sound Library, which I have come across, but I've heard this before actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
want to tell us about that? Because
absolutely.
I know you've had a recording one of your poems. Container's been done put there, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It's great that you dug that up. Yeah, my French publisher who publishes my translations of French poetry as well as my work when it's translated into French, uh, she suggested that, and I had no idea about it. But it's a poetry sound library is like this global map where there's all these little pointers, and so the little pointer above hometown in northern Maine. If you click on that, my poem container starts playing, and it's a beautiful thing to have kind of literally put uh, Madawaska, Maine, which I'm sure everybody's heard about. To have put us on the map, with my own poem, and it feels great to have that. And later on, it got I have four different recordings of my poetry being set to live improvised jazz music by a couple in Bristol.
Fantastic,
Um,
fantastic.
and so one of the first one was Container, and so they took that recording and improvised live to it. And these are beautiful recordings of my poetry literally being set to music, but done live, and it was a quite incredible experience. But the
Oh,
Poetry Sound Library is great for those who love their recited work.
yeah, no, I point agree with you because I said I've been on the website. It's absolutely it's a fantastic website. It really, really is. So now the other thing that caught my eye was, and I've not had a chance to look at this yet, but I know you've two of your poems have been used in the films, haven't they, as well?
Yes.
Now,
Yeah,
do you want to tell us
one of
about
them.
both of these then? Yeah.
Sure. So there was a short film called Bruno about a child by that name. It's 3 minutes long, a little short film, and I had a poem that was uh, literally almost exactly the same length as the film, and I sent it in, and they immediately, well, firstly published it. It was a little kind of a street flyer thing out of Paris. Really beautiful little magazine sold all over the world, called the Belleville Park Pages, and uh, it became the soundtrack of the entire film. So from beginning to end of this short film is me reciting this poem, and it kind of dialogues. It relates to the kid in the film. So I really enjoyed having that as his first time a soundtrack in a film. And then my poem Silver Shiver was chosen to promote a film called Cold Hearts, a poetical, as in not a musical, but a poetical. People would just launch into poetry at different times in the film. And so, as a still frame with a picture of the two main characters, one of my poems is there, and it was used to put out and promote the film. And uh, very nice that they asked for that. I was already living in Maine, having come back from Paris. So it was really an honor to be included in a French film. well, in English, but there's a huge Anglophone literary community and arts community in general in Paris. So, I got to do acting in English and host concerts, and my open mic was mostly in English. So there's a big community there people don't really know about. So I was very much swept up into it, and it's a great gang of absolutely incredible artists in English.
Brilliant stuff. Now, obviously, I was going to come up to Paris next anyway for you. So I know, I believe I read this right. You were in Paris, what, 7 years was it you lived over there? Was it even longer?
Yeah, yeah, 6.5 years, and sometimes I say almost seven. Uh, so yeah, my ex-wife and I moved there in 2011, and it had been my one of my lifelong dreams. I always wanted to live in Paris, and I always wanted to get published in France. I knew Edgar Allan Poe had become big in France, and translated by Charles Baudelaire. So that was a big dream come true, and I got to live like directly across from the Père Lachaise
Oh,
cemetery, of course, where Jim
fantastic.
Morrison is. And I didn't even know that that was the biggest tour attraction in Paris, more than any, more than the Eiffel Tower, for example. More people come to Père Lachaise cemetery
Oh,
probably
I didn't
because
know
of
that.
Jim Morrison.
I
Yeah,
did not
I
know
didn't know
that.
it either.
Wow.
No, so
No,
my first
seriously.
apartment
Wow.
there was across the street from it, and what a lush life and a beautiful place to be an artist. It's really the only place I feel I can be myself. Um, where I live here, it's a kind of a redneck area, and all the guys look like cavemen. Very much,
I'm gonna let
it's
you
like
say
an
that, not me,
unskilled.
because I've not been to where you live, so I'm just gonna say no comment there.
Sure, they'll all appreciate that. And the women tend to prefer Neanderthals as well. So, it hasn't been very successful for me in that regard here. But when I'm in Paris, I feel like I can be the artist that I am and relax. And there are people exactly like me, like-minded artists and makers of everything from poetry to film. And it's great to feel comfortable in one place in the world. And this area is the place I feel least comfortable in the world, which people might not expect.
Yeah, there's
So
these.
Paris gave me a lot.
It's a weird one, that really, what you've done there. But listen, that's for things to talk about off microphone anyway. But I can get you completely with that. So now, obviously, when you lived in Paris, I know you hosted a weekly multi-art open mic night, didn't you, on the left bank called Open Secret? Do you want to tell us
Yes.
about that
Uh,
next?
Sure. Well, firstly, I was going every week like church to Spoken Word Paris, which was the first Anglophone open mic in the city. I mean, for poetry mostly. There had been a music one, but uh, my friend David Barnes founded Spoken Word 18 years ago or so, and so I was going there all the time, and yet I wanted to host my own night. So I talked to him and uh, discussed making a spoken word too, uh, and then with a subtitle of Open Secret. And so I successfully did that for a while, and then it went off on its own. He said, "Well, now you can just call it Open Secret, and it's got its own flavor." And so that went on for 2.5 years. We had people reading not just in English but in 15 other languages, and that's well,
Oh,
if you include German, and Austrian German as two languages,
yeah.
um, but many a different language, and it was a very exciting time. And I got picked up for uh, several films because people liked the way that I was hosting my open mic and the humor and all of that, the hosting that I was doing. So I got to be a host in several films and a TV pilot because directors were sitting in the audience and they loved what I was doing. So in almost all of the films and the one TV pilot I'm in, I play an announcer, a host, and that's been kind of fun. But yes, hosting an open mic in Paris was great, and now it's been 10 years of hosting open mics. So I really love that scene where you can go to a show and you can even perform yourself. It's amazing. Not just sit in the audience, but go to a show and be on stage too.
Brilliant stuff. You know what that sounds like? You said there, you're almost like you're stereotyping yourself, aren't you? And everything. They're saying, "Oh, I'm the host." Yeah. Oh, he put me in a film. Yeah, as a stereotype.
Oh
No.
yes, typecast.
Yeah, I've
As
realised
a
that.
host in all these
No,
films.
brilliant stuff, mate. Now, obviously, now like nowadays, and obviously, so as people are wondering, obviously, you don't host a night in Paris anymore. Obviously, called Open Secret. Now, we met last year for your night Spoken Word Online, which you also do on a weekly basis. So, do you want to tell us about what was the decision to do a weekly online night called Spoken Word Online?
Well, Spoken Word Paris during the pandemic went on to Zoom, and they started having weekly nights there. And the founder got kind of burnt out, let's say, of hosting that show and doing so many things, being Zoom host and list maker and commenter and all of that stuff. He got a little burnt out. So after 3 months, he asked me, and I was, you know, over here in Canada, just amazed. The founder of Spoken Word Paris asked me to host the online arm of it, and of course now they're back in action, and it's been for years now doing it live over there. So I do my open mic the day after, so that people can go to the live one, and they can also go to mine the night after, and it's become its own thing as well, kind of like a spoken word too, but it's a really part of the Spoken Word Paris, and we just completed 5 full years of weekly sessions. So we're starting our sixth. It's great.
That's incredible. Really, right. It's like people obviously, I've told you already, I think I've told you, like I basically co-run a monthly one that's in person. And
Yes.
that takes so much work it does. But to do it weekly like that, that's just absolutely, it's phenomenal.
Wow.
And I bet knowing you, like we've been doing ours, what, 8 years now we have on the first Thursday of
Oh,
every
nice.
month.
In
Like it
Cholton.
in Jolton, yeah. So yours, like I said before, is like yours is every Tuesday. And it's like, that's incredible. Now, what I know of you as well, I bet you've not missed a night of it either, have you?
No, no, I haven't. There have been a couple times where I overslept and I got a
Oh
phone call
no.
from somebody waking me up, and they put up with me a couple of times when I was coming in late to start the show, but it's been literally every week for 5 years and
Incredible.
onward.
It's
So,
incredible because I've done a couple of them, and soon we get a British summertime kicking in again, which will be happening until this podcast goes live. I'm intending to start getting back there regular again, I must admit. So, but how have you found, has tonight changed much over the 5 years you've done it or so, David?
no, not really. It's our friendships have deepened, and it's because, well, yeah, so it has changed in a certain sense. There's a core group of regular attendees, and we've all become closer and closer over time, and we influence each other's poetry, so that I consider spoken world online to be kind of its own literary movement as well, not just an open mic and a real community of friends, but also it's become kind of a movement where we all have somewhat similar styles, or many of us do, and we kind of bounce back and forth, and it ends up happening where you know random seeming concordances will happen, where somebody will be reading a line that I also wrote on my own, or a poem on the same theme as I wrote on my own, and it's just a beautiful concordance that happens with all of us. So yeah, it's become quite something.
Yeah, I think it does sometimes, mate. It's like when you least expect it, that sort of thing, because me and Amanda go to another one we do in Stockport, which is the other side of Manchester. And I've been going there for 14 years and Amanda for the last seven. And it's like that's a monthly one. And we don't run that, we just go along to it. And it's a small group, and it's a nice small group sometimes. It becomes more than just a night, does it? It becomes like it says friends. like I think meeting up regularly. And I've been to enough of yours to see that already, and it's you've got a wonderful crowd there. You know, they're all great writers. So for that, so
Yeah,
now.
thank you. Yeah, they really are.
Now, obviously, in relation to yourself and thinking, still talking about France, I know you've been, I don't know how active you are with this nowadays, but obviously, like, I know you translate French poetry, don't you, as well?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
Um, I'm active with it on and off because it takes a lot of time, and I'm not fluent in French. It's kind of still a study for me, so it takes a lot of work as well, and some sending back and forth with the poets that I translate. Um, but all of my translations have been published uh, in France, which is pretty amazing. And like, for example, Paul Valéry, his great poem Le Cimetière Marin, the graveyard by the sea, from his book Charms, uh, is the first thing that I had translated. And it literally, it was more off than on, but it took me 20 years on and off to get the translation that I really liked, and it got instantly accepted by a literary magazine in France. And there was one feature. I was going to another poetry night where they had people reciting in French, oftentimes, and it was really beautiful. And I kind of fell for one of the women that was reciting there, and we became friends. And I invited her to come and read and feature at my open mic, Open Secret, and she said she wanted her poems to be translated into English. And so I thought, okay, well, that's not something I can do. I'll get somebody. And I misunderstood the person that was going to help me. She wasn't going to translate them. She was going to like coach me in it, or look at what I did and make a couple suggestions. So I ended up, a few sleepless nights over it, but I translated uh, a good portion of a book from a French poet named Deborah Heisler. And so that was great. And then I had another French poet who I met at a Paris event. She hosts monthly, and she interviews writers. And I translated some of her work into English and got to recite it. Or actually, she recited my version. She said it was better than hers. of,
fantastic, mate.
of a poem that, yeah, so I really adore those connections I've made, and since then I've gotten two more publications of the same one of those same women, Adeline Baldacchino. And not that anyone would know the names, but if they look up uh, links or anything. So that's been great, and I'd like to keep on translating Paul Valéry. I Whenever I read a poem in French, I'm translating it to myself. So I end up if I'm looking at another translation, I don't like it, and I make my own version. So since I'm already translating it as I go along, uh, it's not that hard to like just let me get this down because I don't think the other dudes had any idea.
Yeah, you do.
I would
Yeah,
get angry.
I think you do when it's poetry has been translated. I've done Russian poetry before now. So I've got a friend of mine that's
Oh,
Russian
wow.
and I've helped to do it. Yeah, it's like French poetry. I've done a bit of it. It's the way they write it, the use of the language is very different from like English or Canadian, really. And do you find that yourself when you're looking at it sometimes? It's like it's trying to keep the meaning, isn't it, really? So it can be very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely, because there are idioms that don't exist in English, but they're uh, in French, and and even lines based on French maxims, like there's one reculer pour mieux sauter, which means step back to jump better. And in one of the poems I translated, that was included, and so I have to be aware of things that I hadn't before. And although I check my work on various translation programs, um, I do it myself, and I find out as I'm going through the process later on that, oh, that's a French idiom that that I'm learning, and so it helps me to translate the intent and the sense of it more than just, it's not word for word that the sense gets in. So it's been
Yeah,
interesting.
I think you do when you start to talk about the Russian side of it. I did that. Yeah, you're dead right of it. It's a common mistake, and people are wrong with it. Is you just translate it straight. You get the meaning. You don't, because the use of language for mankind is very, very different. So, have you found it? Has it surprised you since you started translating the French poetry in a way? Then,
Absolutely, because when I really started letting myself get freer with it and get farther away from the word for word type notion into a more creative notion and try to really capture the poetic uh, impetus, not just the words, um, I would come up with things and then I would worry that the poet might not like them. And so, for example, there's this one image in a poem I translated about Paris having these long metal uh, kind of claws reaching out into the community and grappling with people. And I translated it with an allusion to Kafka. He had called Prague a mother with claws.
oh, I like
So,
that. Oh, I do like
so
that.
I told, isn't it great? So I told the woman, I translated it doing this and that with Kafka. Is that okay? And she sent me back a picture of her desk, which had a big picture of Franz Kafka right on it. And
Oh,
she said, "That's
fantastic.
wonderful."
That really is wonderful. That one. Oh, blimey.
Yeah,
You can't when you get people using those descriptions of you. You it beats good reviews about books of you sometimes straight away with that it does. So now
absolutely.
into books, obviously to date, and I've got a big question I want to ask you about this as well. You've had one collection out, which is Humbledoves. Now, yeah, now people on the video side of things, they will say Dave is such a subtlist here he is. Minimalist cover with very subtle overtime is showing it. Now, obviously, now I know it's only a very slender collection of Humbledoves. Now, before we come onto the background to this, now, people see, if you look inside the book, there's a fantastic inscription here for all my friends, family, and fans who think of me whenever they see a pigeon. Now, I'm very intrigued to know where this has come from.
Oh wow! I started writing these poems in Paris and using them as a way to capture the crowd's joyful attention before reading a serious poem. So I would recite something really silly, a poem about about a pigeon or several, and people love them. And I got told so many times because there are probably it's just a pamphlet really. So I mean there might be 15 poems to pigeons in here and then about the same number of poems to plants where I address them as real conscious beings, which I think they are. And so many people told me that whenever they see a pigeon they think of me even when I was back here at home, so to speak. And so I put that in because it's just affectionately a nod to that fact that people think of me
I think
that
it's true.
way.
I think it's tremendous that you're getting compared to a pigeon. Particularly, I'll be honest with you, my brother calls pigeons rats with wings, right? So, which
I know,
I
and
don't think you are that, mate.
no, oh, they don't think of me as a pigeon, but they think of me when they see a pigeon. So like of that time in my poems to pigeons and all of that. But I describe them as very cute and adorable, and they have human qualities that I superimposed on them. They're Parisian pigeons. They're into fashion, and there's this whole kind of subculture that I create around them, and it's a really fun thing. So anyhow it became such a celebrated thing when I lived in Paris that I wanted to really pursue it and finish it because of my nieces. I wanted them to have it to read, and so it was great to complete it and get it out there. And for the only time I plan to do any kind of self-publishing, this is the one book I wanted to at least get one thing out there uh, so that it could draw people in. And then, my when my serious books were getting picked up, winning contests, for example, which I am very confident about, but it hasn't happened yet. Um, People would at least have had that introduction. And I've heard that uh, selling like 150 copies of a poetry book is great and kind of unusual. So having sold about 120, 125 copies of this book that I self-published and promoted myself, uh, that's a lot,
Yeah, good going, mate.
considering the world of poetry today. And so I'm proud of that. And knowing that publishers sometimes are like, oh, we'll publish this and only 50 copies of it, or at least that kind of at least the first run. So the idea that, oh my God, it sold almost three times that many might be good for them to know. So
Yeah.
I'm proud of how it did.
No, I agree, mate, completely. It's something to be proud of straight away with that, tells you. And yeah, well done with that one, mate, straight away. So,
Thank
okay, and onwards and upwards now. What I want to ask you next is, and I've just lost my page here as well. Yes, now, the thing that surprised me when I was researching you before was music, actually. I know the few times I've read it your night, you're always asking me about, you always love me doing poems about that. I've managed to music references in. So it kind of made sense to me. And although it did surprise me, that you are or was a singer-songwriter, aren't you? So, and now, obviously, like your references or your influences are Jeff Buckley, Joni Mitchell, Elliott Smith, the Smiths, of course, Daughter, Goo Goo Dolls, and lots of others. Now, I want to learn, first of all, obviously, has music always run hand in hand with your poetry, or has it been very separate?
Um, in a sense, very separate because I think songwriting is simpler, or my guitar teacher, my first songwriting and guitar teacher, uh, he said that with music sometimes you have to dumb down the lyrics, and I don't like that idea. I want things to be more complex if they need to be, but I do think lyrics are simpler by nature and tend to have a chorus, a refrain, which is something I like that Yeats does, for example. So there's some similarities. I love creating things with words, obviously, but and my lyrics are poetic. But it's an honor to me that I've had songs on the radio and it's great response. And I've on my page that you were looking at, I've gone into the top 10 in Canada several times, and I'm often in the top 20. Right now, I'm 14th in Canada on of all the thousands of singer-songwriters here on ReverbNation.com. So it's been nice and going as high as five. So it feels good that people like it and listen, and that it's had some radio play.
No, I respect, mate, straight away with that one. So the choice, but that's a massive thing to be proud of. We get my respect in that one. Definitely that. So yeah.
Thank you.
Now, obviously, I'm going to have to ask you then. Obviously, if you've been a music fan, what's been your favorite ever gig you've been to?
Oh wow.
I'll tell you mine.
Uh,
I've got
my
two.
my
I've got two.
okay. Okay. My favorite band, Bombay Bicycle Club, who picked their name off of a restaurant in North London when they were 15 years old and going to their first gig, and they didn't have a name yet. And they passed by a restaurant called Bombay Bicycle Club, and they thought, well, we'll borrow that, and you know, maybe in a couple weeks we'll be back to just being high school students and all of that. So anyway, I saw a Bombay Bicycle Club uh, show in Montreal, and it totally was ecstatic for me, especially after about 8 hours of driving against so many aggressive tailgaters and other, you know, harassment on the road, and actually getting to the venue with like 14. My phone was down to 14%, and I had to present, my ticket that
Ouch.
was on my phone. And then I even got a few short videos of different songs before my phone went out. But I wouldn't have found the place if I didn't have the Google Maps telling me, and I wouldn't have gotten in if I didn't have the ticket on my phone, and I wouldn't have been able to capture some moments. So I was very fortunate. And then I couldn't find my car. That took 3 hours to find where
Oh,
it was. And then I spent another 5 hours looking for my hotel. And these things are impossible to do when you don't have a phone, when you don't have, I had no way to charge it, because the jack didn't work, and then the car
oh,
thing blew out. So anyway, another 5 hours looking for a hotel. But that time in the middle when I was at the show was absolutely ecstatic. So there you go. My favorite band, and they're from, well, yeah, they're from North London, I believe. So.
yeah, definitely. And one of my mates is a real gig goer, and Jason. He loves them as well. I know he does. He said they were played here last year. I think it was last year, and he tried to get me to go, and I couldn't do it. I was doing something else. But my
Yeah.
favorite gigs, I've got two for you. Okay, number one is and Jeff Buckley. So I saw him in
Oh
his.
wow.
I saw him in his. I'm old enough. I'm old enough to say I saw him, and I saw him on his. I had to double check the date of this one because I couldn't remember the bloody date. Was on the 1st of March, 1995. Would you believe? And I was 23.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd gone off and traveling around Brazil at that point, and I came back early because I heard him on the radio over there, and it was absolute. I thought, oh, no, I've got to go back, and I got back, and he did. If people check the set list on it, he started off with Dream Brother, which is an extraordinary song anyway. But what's not on the set list was he started off with 5 minutes or something, and I was stood there with a mate of mine and said, "What the heck is he doing here?" And it was just something completely off the cuff. I think it was called Chocolate, it was. And it was like, you sat there listening thinking, this is extraordinary. But it's a tragic thing because I remember telling my mate afterwards, there was somewhat bad coming. You know sometimes if you know what I mean with it. And that's sadly, he got killed, didn't he, in quite a horrific way 2 years later. So,
Yeah, he drowned.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
horribly.
funny. The last thing I saw a film that was like really limited, called Grace, and people are always surprised that I saw it. And his friend Foti, who he was out uh, swimming with or out in nature, uh, before Jeff went in to the river to start swimming, uh, he said, "Turn it up." That was the last thing he said because his friend was playing some Led Zeppelin
Yeah,
on a boombox, and "Turn it up" is the last thing he said, which not everybody knows. And I heard it from the director of the film, who had
no.
talked to his friend. And so, anyway, really moving stuff. And I'm still profoundly amazed by what Jeff Buckley did, which is unparalleled.
Yeah, I've not come across many singers in his level, that's for sure of it. So, other one that always sticks in my head was a Manchester band. I don't, they've just done a big tour of Canada, America last year called the Chameleons. Have you heard of them?
Uh, the Chameleons UK, is that how
Yeah,
they're?
the Chameleons UK. They're called over in Europe, Canada, America, Chameleons
I
UK.
figured in America they
Yeah,
were, yeah, exactly like the English beat,
yeah,
just the beat over there.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I've heard one song just on an alternative
Yeah,
show on
you need to
MTV.
hear more. You need to hear more on it. The first,
Absolutely,
they're
yeah.
an 80s band, and the first time they reformed was back in 2000 when they did 5 dates at a local venue, not that far away from where I live now, actually. And it
No.
was a case of when it hit. This was the early days of the internet back in the 2000s. And it began, I don't know, March 2000, actually. And I remember that people flying over from America and Canada to go see them at this little
Wow.
venue that
Oh,
could hold
that's great.
150 people. So like it's just said, it's gigs like that, it's sticking in your mind. That's why it's extraordinary that was. The venue could hold 180. They got 250 people in there and it was rammed.
That's great.
Yeah,
That is great.
that's the one that sticks in my
Yeah.
mind, that one does. But that's my two anyway. So
Beautiful.
now
Beautiful.
obviously back to your poetry then, obviously. I know obviously you've got a couple of collections that are pending at the moment, haven't you? With publishers and stuff.
Yes.
I can't go into too much of about it, obviously for legal reasons. But what do you want to tell us about these pending collections? Is there anything?
Well, they're pending in the sense that I keep sending them out to contests, and a few just independent publishers and having them get rejected. So, these are just maybe 2 to 5 years old. These different little books that I just keep sending out and getting rejections for. But now I'm getting more aggressive in a sense of like I'll even submit the same manuscript to two different contests that I had to pay a lot to submit in, and just I realized that I might win one of them and just have to cancel the other one that I paid for. It's fine. That's what I want to spend money on is poetry really, and so yeah, there's everything from a children's book to poems I wrote in Paris to recent lines from dreams. I have over 400 pages of poetry that I've heard in dreams and written down verbatim. Uh, so the first volume of that, it's 33 chapters of 33 micropoems, each all directly from a dream. And they totally turn logic upside down with lines like, he threw a window at the sun. If I were sitting at my
That's it.
desk, I would not come up with he threw a window at the sun. It's completely mad in a sense. The things that come up in dreams, even really simple lines like "This is the year of the key." People have commented about that. All it was in the Bombay Review, for God's sake, the biggest magazine in South Asia. So they were the first to publish my dream lines, and like 28 of them and they've been published around the world now, different ones in a few different languages, even. So those are just a glimpse of what I'm doing.
Really. Well, good luck then, mate, straight away with that. So now, obviously, that
Thank you.
covers all my questions today, really. So we'll go on to the social media side of things to plug now. Obviously, then, first of all, if people want to get hold of your debut collection, where do you recommend they go?
Well, if they go to Amazon and put in Humbledoves, or just put in my last name, or even David Sirois, even if not David Leo Sirois. So either by my name or just typing in Humbledoves, which is what I do because I keep having to get the link to give people. So that's one way to do it. But if
Yeah,
you
it's
Google
easier.
David Leo Sirois, the last time I Googled my name, I got 14 pages of links to my poetry and music. Here's 10 links and then, more results. So 14 pages of links to my stuff. So in a lot of ways, the best way to find my stuff is just to Google my name and more than enough.
Yeah, that's for sure of it, is that when I was researching, I kept coming up with stuff and I thought, good grief. I thought, it is, yeah, you've got a lot of stuff there. Now, obviously, if people want to get hold of you to perhaps come on your night, for example, or get in touch, how do you recommend they do it?
Well, if one goes to the Facebook page of Spoken World Online, uh, it's probably easier to remember than David Leo Sirois with the French last name. So yeah, instead of spoken word, spoken world online, if they look that up, they can easily find info and links and all of that. So that's the easiest way to find the open mic. And it's every Tuesday afternoon for me, and it's evening in the UK and in Paris, and uh, late at night in India. But people join from all over the world, not just as far as India, but even all the way as far as Malaysia and the Philippines and Indonesia.
Yeah, it's incredible.
People are
It's
coming at all hours.
Yeah, it's incredible because I've been there and I've seen, you're right, I can honestly say that I've seen people read there from countries I didn't even know people wrote poetry, and that's been honorable saying that I didn't.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah, that's why. But obviously, if people want to speak to you directly, then what I know you're on Facebook, aren't you? Anyways, people can easily track you down on Facebook. Are you
They
on any
can.
other? Are you on any other of the social medias as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm on, you know, Twitter and Instagram and uh, WhatsApp and uh, whatever that new one is, Threads, and yeah, so I'm on all of them, but pretty much on every one it's as David Leo Sirois or as David Sirois. So if people have my name, or if they want to reach me directly, it's just my full name at gmail.com. David Leo Sirois at gmail.com is we could put it in a note in the when you
Well, good.
publish this.
He's trying brilliant stuff. Okay, folks. Yeah, now we're going to let David catch his pause for his breath for a minute. We've been chatting for quite a while there as well. But thank you again for this, mate. I've been looking forward to this since we agreed this. So we'll take a quick break, everybody, and we're back in two shakes of the dice. And David's going to do a couple of poems for us. So see you all soon.